They call it a democracy, they say it's free. But the truth is, Taiwan isn't really a country, it's a pawn, a massive offshore military base dressed up as a democracy. And now, the West is panicking, because their carefully crafted narrative about Taiwan is falling apart. The so-called Great Recall vote just failed, and Beijing is watching every move closely. Let's be honest, Taiwan is not the front line of democracy. It's the front line of American military strategy in Asia. Right now, over 500 American troops are quietly stationed in Taiwan. That's a fact, confirmed by multiple U.S. Department of Defense reports. American naval vessels regularly dock at ports in Kaohsiung and Keelung. Joint exercises, arms shipments, and military advisors are routine. This isn't about freedom or sovereignty. It's about maintaining a forward operating base right off the coast of China, and it's starting to piss China off. You see, Taiwan gives the United States a key foothold in the First Island chain, a critical strategic zone that stretches from Japan down through the Philippines. It's like a fence meant to box China in. Taiwan is the lock on the gate, and Washington holds the key. And China, well, they want that key back. The situation exploded again this week with the so-called Great Recall, a major vote in Taiwan that tried and failed to unseat 24 opposition lawmakers from the Kuomintang, or KMT for short. Why were they targeted? Because they dared to question the DPP government's anti-China agenda, because they stood against military escalation, and because, according to the ruling party and their NGO allies, that made them disloyal. It was a political purge, disguised as democracy. Supporters of the recall claimed these lawmakers were pro-Beijing because they opposed spending billions on U.S.-made weapons and military expansion. But let's call that out for what it really is: silencing voices who don't support American hegemony. They weren't corrupt. They weren't criminals. They just had the wrong opinion. Free speech, my ass. And yet, the people didn't buy it. Not enough voters turned out. None of the 24 were removed. In fact, this campaign backfired. Big time. It showed just how fragile Taiwan's so-called democracy really is. If you don't support the ruling party's narrative, they'll try to erase you. That's not democracy. That's good old-fashioned American-style regime control. So, how did we even get here? Let's go back in time a bit. Before 1949, there was only one China, the Republic of China, led by the Nationalist Party, or KMT. But after losing the Civil War to Mao's communist forces, Chiang Kai-shek and his followers fled to Taiwan, taking with them stolen gold, artworks, and 500,000 troops. The Communist Party established the People's Republic of China, and Taiwan became a political orphan, refusing to acknowledge Beijing's authority while clinging to the old name, Republic of China. Fast forward to the Cold War. The United States needed a loyal base in East Asia to contain communism, so it backed Taiwan with weapons, money, and military protection. But by the 1970s, things shifted. The U.S. officially recognized the People's Republic of China as the only legal government of China, in line with the One China policy. That's important. Every country that has diplomatic ties with Beijing, including the U.S., has agreed that there is only one China, and Taiwan is part of it. Let that sink in. Even Washington has never recognized Taiwan as an independent country, ever. But here's the trick. While the U.S. mouths support for the One China policy, it arms Taiwan to the teeth. Billions of dollars in weapons, radar systems, missiles, jets. It's like giving your neighbor's rebellious teenage son a full set of guns and telling him to defend himself from his own parents, while also sweet-talking the parents. That's what's happening here. Taiwan is not just a territory. It's a trap. A time bomb placed right on China's doorstep, ready to go off the moment it's useful to Washington. The U.S. doesn't care about Taiwan's people. It cares about power projection. It cares about the great geopolitical game. And the DPP leadership under President Lai Ching-te is playing right into their hands. Lai's administration pretends to be about independence and freedom, but in reality, it's about dependency on the West. They push for closer military ties with the U.S., echo anti-China rhetoric, and now they've tried to silence the opposition through mass recalls. And when that failed, they blamed, you guessed it, China. According to Taiwan's officials, Beijing was interfering in the recall vote, but no evidence has been shown. What they're really saying is, if voters reject our plan, it must be foreign interference. That's straight out of the American playbook. Just like the UK did after Brexit. Just like after Trump's win in 2016 and 2024. Blame the Russians, blame the Chinese, blame anyone but your own failed policies. Meanwhile, Beijing's position hasn't changed. It still calls for peaceful reunification under the One China principle. It still opposes foreign military presence on its territory. It still views Taiwan as an inseparable part of its national identity. And unlike the US, it doesn't station troops in Cuba or Canada and then pretend it's about democracy. Let's ask a simple question. What would happen if China placed 500 troops in Puerto Rico and docked warships in Miami? Would the US just sit back and say, that's fine, they're just helping defend democracy? Of course not. They'd call it an invasion. They'd threaten war. But when the US does it to China, it's called peacekeeping. Double standards, anyone? And here's the uncomfortable truth for the West. The people of Taiwan are waking up. They're not stupid. They can see that their island is becoming a battlefield, not by choice, but by design. They're tired of being a pawn. That's why this recall vote failed. Not because they love the KMT, but because they hate the endless cycle of fear, war talk, and foreign interference. They do not want to end up as the next Ukraine, locked in brutal attritional warfare against a far larger opposition. China isn't asking for Taiwan to surrender. It's asking for what every other sovereign country demands, territorial integrity. The same thing the US says it will defend to the last man in Ukraine. Why is Taiwan different? Why does Western media frame any move toward reunification as aggression but ignore the fact that American generals are literally drawing up war plans from inside Taipei? Here's something else to chew on. In 2021, a leaked U.S. Indo-Pacific Command report revealed contingency plans to mobilize U.S. troops from Taiwan in the event of conflict. That means there are already operational forces on the island, quietly, illegally, in clear violation of the One China policy the U.S. itself agreed to. And nobody talks about it. Instead, they talk about China's threats, China's aggression, China's rise, but they never ask why a country of 1.4 billion people, with thousands of years of history and a deep sense of national unity, would tolerate being encircled by foreign bases, fleets, and spies forever. Modern China has only ever had one message: to work with other nations, in partnerships that benefit trade, technology sharing, manufacturing, and general development. And they prove that year after year with their massive projects in Asia, Europe, Africa, and South America. So yeah, China doesn't want war, but it does want peace on its own terms, without American warships lurking 100 miles from its coast, without CIA-backed NGOs manipulating elections in Taipei, and without Washington pretending to be the global referee while setting the whole ring on fire. This great recall vote may seem like a small domestic story, but it's much bigger than that. It's a crack in the illusion that Taiwan is a thriving, independent democracy, the illusion that the U.S. is just a helper, not a manipulator, the illusion that China is the threat, when in reality China is simply standing up after a century of humiliation and saying, enough. It's time we stop pretending Taiwan is some neutral island caught in the middle. It's an occupied outpost, a glorified forward base for U.S. forces. And unless the people of Taiwan take back control of their future, and unless the West learns to respect China's sovereignty, we're heading straight for confrontation. So next time you hear about democracy in Taiwan, ask yourself, whose democracy, whose army is on the ground, whose weapons are in the ports, and who really benefits if things explode? It's definitely not the people living in Taiwan, that's for sure. If you found this perspective valuable, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.